The Colorado mountain town of Silver Creek had always been wary of drifters, especially ones who rode in after dark with blood on their clothes and exhaustion written across their weathered faces. But when Cowboy Jake Donovan stumbled into town, just before midnight, carrying a barely conscious young woman in his arms, the usual suspicions were replaced by urgent concern. "Help!" Jake called out hoarsely as he staggered down the main street, his voice echoing off the wooden storefronts. "She needs a doctor." Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the town's physician, and one of the few women practicing medicine in the territory, emerged from her clinic with a lantern held high. What she saw made her gasp. A tall cowboy in torn clothing, his face and arms bearing fresh claw marks, cradling a girl of perhaps 16 who was unconscious but breathing. "Bring her inside quickly," Dr. Mitchell ordered, leading Jake into her clinic. "What happened?" "Wolves," Jake said simply, gently placing the girl on the examination table. "Pack of them attacked her wagon about 5 miles out. Her family." He couldn't finish the sentence. Dr. Mitchell began examining the girl while Jake stood nearby, swaying slightly from exhaustion and blood loss. The young woman had been badly frightened and had some minor injuries, but she was alive, which was more than could be said for her family. "You're hurt too," Dr. Mitchell observed, noticing the extent of Jake's injuries. "Sit down before you fall down." "Is she going to be all right?" Jake asked, ignoring the doctor's instruction to sit. "She'll live, thanks to you. But you won't, if you don't let me treat those wounds." As Dr. Mitchell worked on both patients, the girl gradually regained consciousness. Her name was Lucy Henderson, and she was traveling with her parents and younger brother to start a new life in Denver. When the wolf pack had attacked their wagon at dusk, they came out of nowhere, Lucy whispered, tears streaming down her face. "So many of them." Papa tried to fight them off, but her voice broke completely. Jake knelt beside the examination table, his own pain forgotten in the face of Lucy's. "Trauma, you're safe now," he said gently. "The wolves are gone. He saved me," Lucy said to Dr. Mitchell, looking at Jake with eyes full of gratitude and awe. "When the wolves got Papa and Mama and little Tommy, this man appeared like an angel. He had nothing but a rifle and a knife, but he fought them off to save me." Dr. Mitchell looked at Jake with new respect. Fighting off a wolf pack single-handedly was the stuff of frontier legends, requiring not just courage but incredible skill and determination. "How many wolves?" she asked. "7 that I counted," Jake replied matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "Maybe 8. Hard to tell in the dark." Word of Jake's heroic rescue spread through Silver Creek faster than wildfire. By dawn, a crowd had gathered outside Dr. Mitchell's clinic, eager to hear the story firsthand and to get a look at the man who had single-handedly fought off a wolf pack to save a stranger. But Jake found the attention uncomfortable. He'd done what any decent person would do when they found someone in trouble. The fact that it had required facing down a pack of wolves was just an unfortunate necessity. "I need to be moving on," Jake told Dr. Mitchell as she finished bandaging. "His wounds don't like to stay in one place too long. You're in no condition to travel." She replied firmly, "Those wounds need time to heal, and you've lost a lot of blood." "People around here don't take kindly to drifters," Jake said. "Better if I don't overstay my welcome." Subscribe to our channel for more incredible frontier stories. You won't believe how this town's reaction transforms a lonely cowboy's life. But Jake's assumption about the town's attitude was about to be proven wrong in the most unexpected way. As he prepared to leave despite his injuries, Lucy Henderson spoke up with a strength that surprised everyone. "He fought off wolves to save her," Lucy said clearly, addressing the crowd that had gathered outside the clinic. Her voice carried beyond the building to the people in the street. "This man risked his life for a complete stranger. He's a hero." The effect of Lucy's words was immediate and profound. The crowd's curiosity transformed into something deeper, recognition that they were in the presence of someone truly exceptional. Martha Williams, the town's most respected matron and wife of the mayor, stepped forward from the crowd. "Mr. Donovan," she said formally, "Silver Creek owes you a debt that can never be repaid. You saved this young woman's life at great risk to your own. Just did what needed doing, Mum." Jake replied uncomfortably. "Perhaps," Martha said, "but That doesn't make it any less heroic. What happened next surprised Jake more than facing the wolf pack had. One by one, the women of Silver Creek began to speak up, offering him everything from meals to lodging to employment opportunities. "My husband could use help at the lumber mill," offered Mary Chen, whose family ran the town's sawmill. "We've got a spare room above the general store," added Emma Rodriguez, the shopkeeper's wife. "You're welcome to it for as long as you need. And I could use someone with your skills to help with the difficult patients," Dr. Mitchell said, with a slight smile. "Someone who's not afraid of a fight." Jake looked around at the faces surrounding him, seeing something he hadn't encountered in years of drifting from town to town. Genuine welcome and acceptance. These people weren't offering him charity out of obligation. They were offering him a place in their community because they recognized his character and wanted him to stay. "I don't understand," Jake said honestly. "You don't even know me. We know enough." Martha Williams replied, "We know you're the kind of man who fights wolves to save strangers in a place like Silver Creek. That's exactly the kind of neighbor we want." As the sun rose over the Colorado mountains, casting golden light across the town of Silver Creek, Jake Donovan found himself facing a choice he hadn't expected to make, whether to continue his solitary wandering or to accept the gift of belonging that was being offered by people who had judged him by his actions rather than his circumstances. The cowboy who had fought wolves in the darkness was about to discover that sometimes the greatest battles were won not with weapons, but with the courage to let others care about you. 3 weeks had passed since Jake Donovan's heroic rescue of Lucy Henderson, and his integration into Silver Creek's community had been smoother than anyone had expected. He'd taken the job at the lumber mill, rented the room above the general store, and even begun helping Dr. Mitchell with difficult cases that required someone with steady nerves and strong hands. But Jake's real test was about to come from an unexpected source. The trouble started when word reached Silver Creek that the notorious outlaw gang known as the Red Creek Raiders was operating in the area, led by a vicious gunfighter named Black Pete Morrison. The gang had been terrorizing small towns throughout Colorado Territory, robbing banks, rustling cattle, and leaving destruction in their wake. What made the situation worse was that Morrison had a personal grudge against Silver Creek. 5 years earlier, the town's sheriff had killed Morrison's brother in a shootout, and the outlaw leader had sworn vengeance against the entire community. "They hit Millerville yesterday," Sheriff Tom Bradley announced at an emergency town meeting. "Cleaned out the bank, burned half the main street, and killed the people who tried to stop them." The fear in the room was palpable. Silver Creek was a small town with limited defenses, and the Red Creek Raiders were known for their brutality toward civilians. "How many men can we count on to fight?" asked Mayor Williams. Sheriff Bradley did a quick mental count. "Maybe 15 men with guns, and the nerve to use them." "Morrison's got twice that many, all of them experienced killers." It was then that Jake spoke up from the back of the room. "What about getting help from the territorial marshal?" "Nearest marshal is 3 days' ride," Bradley replied. "Morrison will hit us long before any help arrives." The discussion that followed was grim. Some people advocated evacuating the town temporarily. Others wanted to try negotiating with the outlaws. A few suggested surrendering immediately to avoid bloodshed. But Jake had a different idea. "What if we don't wait for them to come to us?" he said. "What if we take the fight to them first?" The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at the cowboy who had become their newest resident. "You're talking about taking on professional killers," Sheriff Bradley said. "These aren't wolves, Jake. They shoot back. I understand that." Jake replied calmly. "But I also understand that waiting here like sitting ducks gives Morrison all the advantages. If we can catch them by surprise, maybe we can even the odds." Mayor Williams looked skeptical. "You're one man, Jake. Even if you are handy in a fight, you can't take on an entire gang alone." "Who says I'd be alone?" Jake asked, looking around the room. "I'm not asking anyone else to take the risks I'm willing to take. But if some of you are willing to help, I think we can stop Morrison before he gets to Silver Creek." What followed was the most heated debate in the town's history. Jake's plan was dangerous to the point of being suicidal. But it was also the only strategy that offered any real hope of protecting the community. Martha Williams, who had been the first to welcome Jake into the community, stood up to address the room. 3 weeks ago, this man fought off a pack of wolves to save a stranger. She said firmly, "If he's willing to risk his life to protect our town, then I think we should listen to what he has to say." Subscribe to our channel now. The incredible plan Jake devises will test everything the town believes about courage and community. Over the next hour, Jake outlined his strategy. The Red Creek Raiders were camped in a box canyon about 20 miles from Silver Creek, believing they were safe from any organized resistance. Jake proposed taking a small group of volunteers to the canyon under cover of darkness, setting fires to create confusion, and attacking the outlaws when they were disorganized and panicked. "It's the same principle I used with the wolves," Jake explained. "Use the terrain to your advantage, create chaos in their ranks, and hit them when they don't expect it. And if it doesn't work, ask Dr. Mitchell. Then at least we'll have given Silver Creek time to evacuate," Jake replied honestly. "But I think it will work in the end." 12 men volunteered to join Jake's assault on the outlaw camp. They weren't professional fighters, but they were men with families to protect and the courage to follow someone they trusted. The attack itself was a masterpiece of frontier guerrilla warfare. Jake and his volunteers reached the canyon just before dawn, positioned themselves at strategic points around the rim, and began the assault with a coordinated barrage of rifle fire and flaming arrows. The outlaws, caught completely off guard, scrambled for cover in panic and confusion. In the chaos that followed, Jake and his men picked off Morrison's gang one by one, using their knowledge of the terrain and the element of surprise to overcome superior numbers. Black Pete Morrison himself tried to escape on horseback, but Jake was waiting for him at the canyon's only exit. The confrontation between the heroic cowboy and the notorious outlaw was brief but decisive. Morrison drew first, but Jake's aim was truer, and the outlaw leader fell from his horse with a bullet through his heart. When the smoke cleared, the Red Creek Raiders had been completely destroyed. 3 of Jake's volunteers had been wounded, but none killed, while Morrison's entire gang lay dead in the canyon. That had become their tomb. The ride back to Silver Creek was triumphant. Word of the victory had somehow preceded them, and the entire town turned out to welcome the heroes home. But all eyes were on Jake Donovan, the drifting cowboy who had saved their community not once, but twice. "How did you know it would work?" Sheriff Bradley asked as they rode into town. Jake considered the question seriously. "I didn't know for certain," he admitted, "but I knew that doing nothing would definitely fail. Sometimes you have to take risks to protect what matters." That evening, as Silver Creek celebrated its deliverance from the outlaw threat, Jake found himself once again the center of attention he didn't particularly want. But this time, the recognition felt different. These people weren't just grateful, they were proud to call him one of their own. "Jake," Martha Williams said as the celebration continued around them, "I hope you understand that Silver Creek is your home now, not just because we're grateful, but because you've proven that you're exactly the kind of man this community needs." Jake looked around at the faces of people who had become more than neighbors. They had become family. The drifting cowboy who had spent years moving from place to place had finally found somewhere he belonged. 6 months after Jake Donovan's victory over the Red Creek Raiders, Silver Creek had transformed from a quiet mountain town into one of the most prosperous communities in Colorado Territory. Word of Jake's heroics had spread throughout the region, attracting new settlers, businesses, and opportunities that the town had never seen before. But the most significant change was in Jake himself. The solitary drifter who had ridden into town carrying a wounded girl had become Silver Creek's deputy sheriff, a respected member of the community, and something he'd never thought possible, a man with roots, responsibilities, and people who depended on him. Deputy Donovan called out 10-year-old Billy Chen as Jake made his morning rounds through town. "My ma says to tell you the apple pie is ready whenever you want to come by for it." Jake smiled and tipped his hat to the boy. In the months since the outlaw attack, the women of Silver Creek had made it their mission to ensure that Jake was properly fed, clothed, and cared for. It was their way of showing appreciation for his protection of their community, but it had also become something more, genuine affection for a man they'd come to love like family. "Tell your ma I'll be by after I finish checking on the Henderson place," Jake replied. Lucy Henderson had recovered completely from her ordeal with the wolves, but she'd chosen to stay in Silver Creek rather than continue to Denver. At 17, she'd become Dr. Mitchell's assistant and had shown remarkable aptitude for medical work. More importantly, she'd become something Jake hadn't expected, a close friend whose opinion mattered to him. "Morning, Jake," Lucy said as he arrived at the small house where she now lived with Martha Williams, who had taken her in as a daughter. "Dr. Mitchell wanted me to ask if you could stop by the clinic later. She's got a patient who might need some of your special persuasion skills." Jake laughed at Lucy's diplomatic way of saying that someone was being difficult and might need to be intimidated into cooperating with medical treatment. It had become one of his unofficial duties in town. "What kind of patient?" Jake asked. "Traveling salesman who got into a fight at the saloon and won't let anyone treat his injuries because he doesn't trust female doctors," Lucy explained with obvious frustration. "I'll handle it," Jake promised. "Can't have people thinking Silver Creek doesn't take care of visitors properly." As Jake continued his rounds, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. 6 months ago, he'd been a man without a past or a future, drifting from place to place with no connections to hold him anywhere. Now he had a job he loved, a community that respected him, and for the first time in his adult life, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere. The transformation hadn't been without its challenges. Learning to stay in one place, to build relationships, and to let people depend on him had required adjustments that were sometimes difficult for a man accustomed to solitude. But the rewards had been worth every moment of discomfort. "Jake," called out Mayor Williams as the deputy passed the town hall, "could I have a word with you?" "Of course, Mr. Mayor. What can I do for you?" Williams looked serious as he gestured for Jake to follow him into his office. "I've received a letter from the territorial capital that I think you should see." The letter was from the territorial governor, officially commending Jake for his actions against the Red Creek Raiders and offering him a position as a territorial marshal with jurisdiction throughout Colorado. "It's a significant honor," Williams explained, "and it would come with a substantial increase in pay and authority." Jake read the letter carefully, understanding the magnitude of what was being offered. A territorial marshal position was the kind of opportunity that most lawmen could only dream of achieving. "What's the catch?" Jake asked. "You'd have to leave Silver Creek," Williams said quietly. "Territorial marshals travel constantly, covering large areas and handling the most dangerous cases." Jake felt something twist in his chest at the thought of leaving the community that had become his home. The irony wasn't lost on him. His success in protecting Silver Creek had earned him an opportunity that would require abandoning it. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible frontier stories. You won't believe the choice Jake makes that will define the rest of his life. "How long do I have to decide?" Jake asked. "They'd like an answer within 2 weeks," Williams replied. "Jake, I want you to know that while Silver Creek would hate to lose you, we'd all understand if you chose to accept. This is the kind of opportunity that could set you up for life." That evening, Jake found himself sitting on the porch of his room above the general store, watching the sunset over the mountains and contemplating the biggest decision of his life. The territorial marshal position represented everything he'd once thought he wanted: respect, authority, and the freedom to keep moving. But Silver Creek offered something he'd never known he needed: a place where he mattered not for what he could achieve, but for who he was. "Mind if I join you?" asked Lucy Henderson, climbing the external stairs to his porch. "Always welcome," Jake replied, making room for her on the wooden bench he'd built. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the town settle into evening routines that had become familiar and precious to Jake. "I heard about the marshal offer," Lucy said eventually. "News travels fast in a small town." Jake observed. "Are you going to take it?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "What do you think I should do?" Lucy considered the question seriously. "I think you should do what makes you happy," she said. "But I also think you should consider what happiness really means." "What do you mean?" I mean that 6 months ago, you were a man who fought wolves alone in the dark. Now you're a man who has a whole town full of people who care about you, depend on you, and would be heartbroken if you left. Jake understood what Lucy was really asking was the respect of strangers, worth giving up the love of friends and family. 2 weeks later, Jake Donovan stood before the town council of Silver Creek and made his decision public. I've decided to decline the territorial marshal position, he announced. Silver Creek is my home, and these are my people. That's worth more to me than any job offer. The relief and joy on the faces around him confirmed that he'd made the right choice. Martha Williams stood up to address the council. In that case, she said with a smile, I think it's time we made some things official. Jake Donovan has proven himself to be exactly the kind of man Silver Creek needs. As its permanent sheriff, the vote was unanimous. 5 years later, Sheriff Jake Donovan stood in the Silver Creek Church, wearing his best suit and waiting nervously at the altar. The church was packed with the entire town, all of them eager to witness the wedding of the man who had saved their community and the woman who had helped him find his place in it. Dr. Lucy Henderson walked down the aisle in a beautiful white dress, her eyes shining with happiness and love. The girl Jake had saved from wolves had become the woman who had saved him from loneliness. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories of heroism, community, and finding where you belong from the American frontier. Hit that subscribe button now, because these tales prove that the greatest treasures are the people who choose to love you. As they exchanged vows, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He'd started as a drifter with number connections to anyone or anywhere, but one night of fighting wolves to save a stranger had led to a lifetime of belonging, purpose, and love. He fought off wolves to save her, Martha Williams whispered to her husband during the ceremony. And at sunrise, the town's women took him in. Best decision we ever made. The cowboy who had once been afraid to stay anywhere too long had found his forever home in the hearts of people who valued courage, character, and the willingness to fight for what mattered. Your subscription helps us continue bringing these incredible tales of frontier heroism and community to life. Subscribe now and join us for more amazing stories that prove home isn't a place, it's the people who accept you as family.